How's it going, everyone? So let's jump into this Ahsoka trailer. It's kind of the big Star Wars news of the day, and it's really important because it gives us the release date of the show, August 23rd. That's something that we didn't really have yet, so that's exciting. I'll be honest, this is not a total, like, genuine reaction video because I've already seen this. I watched it during work of all places, so I'm not seeing it for the first time, but I wanted to watch it with you guys and maybe talk about a couple of the new scenes that are in this. And there's not a lot of new scenes, but there's a couple new little clips that are pretty interesting. So we'll talk about those, but let's watch it first.
It's been a while. Things have changed. I started hearing whispers about Thrawn's return as heir to the Empire. We have to prepare for the worst. The Jedi fell a long time ago. There aren't many left.
Perhaps it is time to begin again.
Ahsoka, original series streaming August 23rd.
Sweet. So there's a few things that happened here that I thought were interesting, and for the sake of simplicity, we're just gonna work through those and kind of in a linear fashion. But starting at the beginning, we get this interaction between Sabine Wren and Ahsoka, and it's obviously some time has passed since they've last seen each other. And we can really see this in Sabine's longer haircut, which is different than one of the recent images the Empire released showing Sabine in her Mandalorian armor with a haircut that resembles more what we're used to. So that shows us that just within this show, there's going to be a couple different time eras that we're in. We work through, obviously, we've gotten all of this so far, the red Lucasfilm logo, but then this part, Ahsoka starts talking about Thrawn, and we see this shuttle arrive on what looks to be potentially a Star Destroyer. I don't know, it doesn't quite look like a Star Destroyer to me, but we see the shuttle arriving, and this is what's new here. So we get this shuttle, the ramp lowering, and we have a figure here. Just based off of context that she's talking about Ahsoka, it really seems like this shot is leading us to assume that it's Thrawn maybe coming out of this shuttle. And if that's the case, then this is probably somebody like Captain Paleon, who is in Rebels, but he also serves as Thrawn's like right-hand man in the Heir to the Empire trilogy. So that would be kind of cool to get a little bit more of Captain Paleon as well. That's assuming this is Thrawn coming out of the shuttle. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Do you think it's Thrawn coming out of the shuttle? Obviously, this isn't new. We got this clip of Thrawn with the Star Wars Celebration trailer that came out. But then we get something interesting as we kind of work through. Yep, we know that Hera's going to be there. Mon Mothma, there's Hera again, Chopper, all that. So this shot of Ezra is one that we have seen before. We saw it in the previous trailer, but there's something interesting here, and that is, if you notice here, as far as I can tell, he doesn't have his lightsaber. But then if we look at this shot right, oh, you know what? In real time, I'm seeing it right now. Oh, such a fail on my end. So you can't see his lightsaber from the front, but the back shot, there it is, lightsaber. And I guess, you know what? If we look at that, yeah, there's his lightsaber there. Okay. All right. Anyways, Ezra's got his lightsaber, but what that tells us is that he still hasn't been found. This is an old holo image, and obviously so because he looks pretty similar to how he looked in Rebels by the time that he leaves, clean shaven. I don't know why, I just assume that next time we see Ezra, he's gonna have a beard. But just a reminder that Sabine does have Ezra's lightsaber. She, at the end of Rebels, Ezra gives her his lightsaber and she holds on to it for him. And obviously she still has it however many years later. And this is a cool scene right here.
There aren't many left.
Right there. Get a little bit of the clash of lightsabers here. But here's the, oh my gosh, I need to pause it. So after looking at Ezra and seeing that and understanding that Sabine is still trying to fulfill her promise of finding Ezra again, we move to something that I think is pretty cool. and that is we get to see Sabine wielding Ezra's lightsaber. If you don't remember from Rebels, she ends up with Ezra's lightsaber, and she's obviously still got it, and she's gonna duel with this dark Jedi. I'm calling her and then Baylan Skoll, the other character, a dark Jedi, because my theory is that these are not necessarily Sith, not necessarily even maybe fallen Jedi, but perhaps they are Jedi who have been separate from the main events of the galaxy. Maybe they've been out in the Outer Rim or whatever it might be, and they've really been disconnected, and they've become kind of these darker characters. They're not Jedi anymore, they're not Sith, but they're not necessarily good guys. They've obviously been corrupted by the dark side, but as far as what their motives are and who exactly they were at one point in time, that remains to be seen, and I'm excited to see that. So the last thing that I want to talk about is we have Huyang, who, if you don't know, this is the droid that when younglings were on their way to Ilum to construct their own lightsabers, to pick their kyber crystals from the ice planet of Ilum, Huyang was the droid that would be on the ship to Ilum and would help the younglings construct their lightsabers. So, and he's been around for a very long time, a very long time, like even before Yoda. So this is a pretty prominent, consistent character for the Jedi, and we see that this trailer ends with Ahsoka stabbing her lightsaber through him. Now, part of me thinks that this is going to be kind of like actually, we're finding out a bunch in real time. No way, let's watch this. Yeah, I think that's oh, they're messing with us. They made it look like Ahsoka killed Huyang. But look at that red helmet. That's not Huyang. Huh, okay, all right. Well, I first watched that assuming that Ahsoka was killing him, and it was kind of one of those let the past die, let the Jedi die kind of thing, and that's surprising. Okay, cool. So Huyang being here kind of alludes to maybe the history of the Jedi, and especially should be a callback to the old Jedi Order before Order 66. And he's saying perhaps it's time to begin again. At first thought, that might mean, hey, Ahsoka, it's time to rebuild the Jedi Order, but just based off of what's happening and what does happen in the Star Wars timeline, I don't think that's what's going to ultimately happen. I think that obviously Luke attempts to rebuild the Jedi Order, and that's thwarted by Ben Solo, and he just never succeeds in doing that, unfortunately. And then, of course, Daisy Ridley is coming back as Rey in a movie that takes place 15 years after the rise of Skywalker, and we know that the premise of that is rebuilding the Jedi Order. So that kind of tells me that Ahsoka is not going to be the one that rebuilds the Jedi Order, but I wonder if Huyang is going to work with Ahsoka, if maybe they're going to work together, and part of the story here is, one, Ahsoka finding closure and reconciling herself with the Jedi, because if you don't remember from the Clone Wars, she left the official path of being a Jedi and never really comes back to it. She obviously does a lot of things like a Jedi, and in many ways is more a Jedi than most of the Jedi Order was, but she never officially returns to that path. So I wonder if part of this show is going to be grappling with that, and maybe what happens in this show sets the foundation for Rey years later rebuilding the Jedi Order. And that could be cool. That could be cool to see. Even, I don't know, maybe perhaps we see Ahsoka interact with Rey in some capacity. Obviously, she was a voice that Rey heard at the end of Rise of Skywalker, which would imply that she was dead, but also around that time, Dave Filoni tweeted something hinting that Ahsoka wasn't dead. So who knows? You know what? There's a whole open world of possibilities here, and I think that this show is really going to be groundbreaking for Star Wars. I think it's going to be something that's really exciting. This is going to be a piece of the puzzle that in terms of pushing the story forward, in terms of the Force and in terms of the Jedi, because that's something that The Mandalorian has done a little bit, obviously bringing back Luke Skywalker and Grogu's path of at least starting out as a Jedi with Luke and doing that Jedi training for a little bit. Obviously, the story of the Jedi has been touched on in The Mandalorian, but with Ahsoka, it's a central piece of the puzzle, whereas with The Mandalorian culture and the Mandalorian way was kind of the central piece to the puzzle, and that's what they focused on. So Ahsoka's really going to focus on some things that really, to me, are important parts of Star Wars, and that's, I'll say it, that's lightsabers. That's the Force. Like, to me, those are critical elements of Star Wars, and if it makes me sound like I'm just a little kid that wants to see lightsaber fights, then yes, that's exactly what I want to see in Star Wars, is lightsaber fights and Jedi, because I think that is one of the coolest parts of Star Wars to me. And I think Ahsoka is going to deliver on that, so I'm excited to see it. Let me know in the comments below, what are you most excited about with this Ahsoka series? Have a great rest of your day, and may the Force be with you.